Okay. So, Chuck, um, you've been at this, you say, for 15 years?
Yep.
15 years. What did you want your legacy to be with this place?
Oh, I'm the guy who tamed the wild muscadines of Madison County.
Okay.
That's
All
what I'm
right.
hoping to do. That's why I'm writing that book I'm working on now.
Are you wanting it to be commercialized? You say, and
Well, we've already got 4 other vineyards planted in this area out of these grapes.
you do.
Yeah, Dennis Goodwin's got one that's bigger than mine,
Wow.
and Rob Bedingfield over here, he's got one, and I think the name's Hanson. They've got one out here, about the
Okay.
same size as mine. And we've got lots of customers who are buying small quantities, like 10 plants at a time,
Mm-hmm.
just to see, because most people who are growing grapes are very conservative. They want to see for a fact that they really do grow where they want to plant them and that they really are cold hardy.
Okay.
And then they'll come back and buy more. That's what's happening in most cases.
All right. Are you hoping to commercialize the wine to produce a
No, I'm
wine from
not.
it?
I have no interest in commercializing my wine.
Okay.
If the capital equipment and time required to do that is too much, and I just don't have time to do it. I got other things that are more high priority for me, such as growing and propagating the muscadines.
But is that a
That's it.
possibility from the cold hardy muscadine?
You mean to make wine out of it?
Yes.
I've already made wine out of it.
Oh, but
And it's good wine. You've got some. You'll taste it.
I mean for this region, for the
Well,
economic.
if somebody wants to do that, I'm sure you can. I mean, there's no reason. Um, Dr. Hoffman's told me that this would be a good replacement for the Noble grape. The Noble
Oh,
is the one that's commercialized.
right.
It's about the same size and same color, and the flavor I think is better, but that's me
Mm-hmm.
off of the Catuas. But yeah, we could very easily do that. And most winemakers who want to make muscadine winemakers who want to make red wine prefer the Noble,
Mm-hmm.
all the other varieties. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be a good replacement for it. And the fact that a lot of people, even down in the Piedmont, which is not quite as high as here, they're still losing some grapes to winter kill of the Nobles.
Right.
So ours is being proved to be very, very cold hardy, and they want to. He sees it as a possible replacement for the Noble in the higher altitude. So
Great. That's awesome.
that's what I think. But yeah, you can use it. We take ours up until COVID. We were using it to make Jeannie's muscadine. Um, Jeannie's grape hull muscadine preserves, which
Okay.
is sort of a unique thing that she developed over a couple of years. When we
Mm-hmm.
first got a handful of grapes, she started playing with it until we got the recipe right. And I think for 3 years we had commercial quantities coming out here from Divine Foods, and we'd sell them through the local grocery stores. And last time I heard, they lasted 2 weeks. We were sold out, so
Wow.
there's a demand for it. But COVID sort of shut that all down, and Carla has told me this year she wants to start doing it again now they got their manpower back. So right now we're planning on saving up our grapes. What we have to do is, as I told you, it's one of the unique differences is vinifera, you just cut the peduncle
Mm-hmm.
and you got the whole bunch and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Muscadines,
It grows.
they're on pedestal by pedestal, so you got to take them one at a time,
Exactly.
and you like 3 or 4 or 5 harvests a season.
Right.
And so what we do is we harvest the first week, put them in our freezer,
Right.
and the second week put them in our freezer. And once we're done with the harvest, then we ship them all out to Divine Foods processing.
Got you. So when you say replace the noble, do you think you get a higher yield off the couture? More so you
Well,
can get more planting less?
I think that's the case, but Mark Hoffman is working on that now. I've got 3 rows on my new block out here where we've got a Catua muscadine, a Noble, and a Carlos, which is like our Scuppernong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got those all planted in the same rows. So when they get older, we can actually do yield studies to see if that is in that case
Very good.
fact. Yeah,
Very
we'll
good.
see.
Okay.
And it's not it's not hard to if you're out in flatlands, it's not hard to propagate vines there as it is here.
Mm,
And I don't know if it has to do with the soil, the climate, the temperature, what it is, but we just know that we tried the techniques they use out there. Jeannie and I went out and spent a day with Hennett Vineyard to see how they were doing it,
mm-hmm.
and came back here and tried for 3 years to duplicate it and couldn't.
But I think a cold hardy muscadine is something that just has, I don't know, evolved so it could survive. It was just like a
Yeah.
mechanism in something that.
Well, Darlene, What we have found from some of the zoologists and biologists that we've talked to from this university and that college, that kind of stuff, is you know about the mother vine, which is out east,
Yes.
right? They think that all of the muscadines out in this whole region, this area in southeast, I guess, originated from that vine. That's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the way it happens here in the mountains is, I talked to you earlier about how the seeds, some of them have the cold hardy gene, some of them don't. Most
Right.
of them don't.
Right.
Okay. So when the birds and the animals eat
That's
them
what I
and
was
start
thinking.
moving up the
Yes.
mountains,
Mm-hmm.
only the ones with the cold hardy gene survived.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got mature and animals ate them, carried them farther back up,
Mm-hmm.
and only the ones with the cold hardy gene survived.
Mm-hmm.
They think that's the way that these native cold hardy muscadines here in Madison County came about.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, we've traveled pretty much all around the county, and we've only found about a dozen patches, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of wild muscadines growing out there. And they're small patches. They'll be maybe 15, 20 yards apart and 60, 80 to 100 yards long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only spot that they're growing. Nothing growing around them,
Hmm.
just there. And it's clearly from animals dropping in there and getting them started.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I made the mistake, hit me on the head twice, with not paying attention to the male-female self-pollinating aspect when I found them in the wild the first case, because the first one I looked at was self-pollinating, and I assumed they're all that, but that's the way
different
they come.
varieties,
You know,
yes.
the seeds were dropped there. Some are self-pollinating, some are
Right.
female, some are male, some are sterile. Okay,
Okay.
we had one sterile vine in my vineyard. It didn't produce any flowers. It didn't produce any grapes.
Hmm.
So I went ahead and dug that one up and replaced it with a self-pollinating. But you know, it's the nature of the beast
Mhm.
that they grow that way, and I suspect, given enough time, this would happen all the way up into New York and Illinois and other places like that, where my grapes are now growing because customers have bought them and planted them.
And
there.
take them up to New York.
I've got them. I'm growing right now. Check my memory. Right now, I've had customers on their vacations. I haven't had to ship them. They come on a vacation down and pick up the vines and take it back. I've got them growing in New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. I got a whole acre of them out in Ohio. We got them in Indiana. We got them in Michigan. We got them in Illinois, and one guy out in Colorado, someplace already.
You
They're growing
have
them.
you have evidence that they are producing
That's what
already?
they tell me.
Really?
What they tell me.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
it's a cold hardy grape. Okay, it's a muscadine, and what we're doing is accelerating what would happen naturally over hundreds of years.
Exactly.
Okay, and so and that's fine. I mean, I'm tickled to death because I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to these kind of grapes. I mean, I'd rather sit and talk about these grapes and write about them and study them than anything else. I just
Okay.
can't think of anything else that I get a bigger kick out of.
Okay.
And I've been an engineer for NASA in years past, so I've done some
So-
interesting things.
Question: these grapes are not seed. They are seeded, right?
They're seeded.
Okay. They all have seeds.
Yep.
What do you think about the seedless variety of muscadines?
I don't like them. I've tasted them, don't like them.
Okay.
Number one, they don't really taste like a muscadine to me.
Okay.
Up until current tests, I haven't tasted.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is the fact that they don't have seeds makes it interesting for propagation. So you've got to use the actual vines themselves to do it, which means there's really no chance for them to get to be a full muscadine the way they are now. But I mean, but that's my thought. That may change with technology in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could do something really crazy like doing some gene splicing and stuff like that. It could get them even better. But we got muscadines now. Look, I think that if you worked with seeds from native cold hardy muscadines, if you worked with those seeds, you would ultimately find one that would self-hybridize or self-modify to be a seedless one. I have tasted a few seedless muscadines naturally, but I haven't been able to find where they came from.
Really?
Okay, yes. So I know it exists, but the people who gave them to me at the time had no idea where they came from because they had bought them someplace. It was like
Right.
a little clamshell full of.
Right.
So there's no doubt that true muscadines exist in all kinds of different variations and flavors, including seedless someplace,
Okay.
but not here.
Okay.
So, and I'm not inclined to start to work on that part of the problem because I'm still working out the final details of how to get the wild ones here to grow properly and how to prune them properly And I've had experience in my lifetime. I've worked with my work travel. I
Mhm.
stopped counting my international travel at 5 million miles back in the 80s.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So I've worked in vineyards and wineries for weekends and holidays all around the world,
Mhm.
literally,
Mhm.
and learned a lot. But it's just they're just things that are different about muscadines. It's like everything. There's nothing the same.
Mhm.
Nothing. You don't propagate them the same. Okay. You don't plant them the same.
Okay.
We have to plant these 4.5 inches below the surface of the ground so they don't winter kill from freezing the roots. Didn't know that at the beginning, and we're losing about half of our vines.
Right.
But once we started with Mark Hoffman's research here, showing that the ground didn't freeze here below 4 inches, so we just started planting all our vines down below 4 inches,
And that
we
was
haven't
it.
lost one since.
Okay.
So you don't propagate them the same, you don't plant them the same, you don't train them the same,
Mhm.
okay? Because we use one main trunk coming up and cordons out, as opposed to the head, where you have one trunk coming up and then you have 3 or 4
Mhm.
main canes that go out that are not cordons. So you don't trellis them the same, you don't prune them the same,
Mhm.
you don't harvest them the same. And why in the world would I think you would make wine the same is beyond me, but I tried for years, and it wasn't just recent years I started to become a good winemaker. So everything is different. Every single thing about muscadines is different from regular grapes.
Have you had it analyzed? Do they carry that extra chromosome?
Oh yeah, they do.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, they
great.
do. And we've got a pretty decent handle now on the wild ones
Mhm.
here, and we've got which I call the Catua muscadines, and the fact that we've now bred the very first ever scuppernong here, we've got a pretty much handhold on that, on how to do that, and so forth. So we're starting to get orders for those now. So this last year we got our first orders for the cold hardy scuppernongs, but it's just different. I mean, you get to the point after a while, you spend so much time in the industry where you've spent so much time traveling. I mean, I had a vineyard out in the desert in Arizona,
Mhm.
and I was making award-winning wines then.
Wow.
Okay, and this goes back 20 years, 30 years ago. It's just muscadines are different. They're just different, but it's
That's
fun
what.
and it's interesting, and we get a lot of people who were born in the South who move up here,
Mhm.
and they want muscadines because they
Mhm.
grew up with them in their backyard and all. It's part of their childhood tasting a muscadine, and they can't grow the normal ones here.
Exactly.
They all, and it's a funny thing. I've run into dozens of people who move here, and they brought cuttings with them from their Mississippi or Alabama or Florida,
They do
and
not
they
survive.
don't work here because
They
they're not
don't
cold
survive.
hardy. And then we've had people who go down here to Lowe's or Home Depot someplace and buy muscadine,
Mhm.
roots, and they won't survive here more than 2 more winters because they're not cold hardy.
Mm.
The central buying office, which is down in Atlanta or someplace, they'll grow there, and the buyers will buy it because, oh look, we can
And they'll bring them up
because
here,
they ship them up here in the north and sell them through the stores.
and it's not
Of
gonna
course,
work.
a lot of people aren't complaining because a recent survey showed that something like 80% of the vines and plants bought at Lowe's
Big box
and
stores.
are never planted.
They're never planted.
Mm.
Not that they don't survive.
No,
They're
never
never planted.
planted.
Okay.
So people aren't missing it much. So,
Well, why waste the
it's a-
money if you're not gonna put it in the ground?
oh, we got to grow something. Oh, we need some roses. Oh, we need, honey, well, they're still sitting in the garage. We need, well, maybe next week. Okay. And first thing you know, they're dead because they didn't water them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I know friends like that here who've done that. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep.
So the same nutritional value with the
Mhm.
ellagic acid and the resveratrol.
It's the same as the other muscadines.
Do you see a market in selling the seeds for supplements?
Well, yes and no. I've already looked into this, but here's the way this works. I've been to the places where they're producing olive oil and grapeseed oil in Italy.
Okay.
And they can use the same equipment to do that.
Okay.
And I've been out to California where they do grapeseed oil.
Okay.
The problem with that is here in the mountains is you've got to have, well, the smallest grapeseed expellers, the cheapest ones are about $4,000. The better ones run about 6 to 8,000. Okay,
Mm.
and they got a hopper on top. You dump the seeds in, and you got a little separator down the bottom, and you got this little solid spit out thing where this solid junk comes out, and down on the other side is where the oil comes out.
Gotcha.
And it works. We've tested it manually. We had a guy down in Asheville test it for us, so you can get it out. I mean, it's good high quality oil. The problem is we can't get enough seeds. You're going to have something like, I think they told me out in California, you've got to have at least about 2 tons
Mm-hmm.
of seeds to make it worthwhile to get one of these things fired up,
Mm-hmm.
to produce the grapeseed oil that would pay for the investment in.
Gotcha.
So you can't. So, out of my little vineyard where just some of my vines are now producing, and there'll be more producing year after year because I've been replanting. It'll take years before I'm producing, 8-10 tons out of my little vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you need 40,000 tons of grapes to make it worthwhile to collect the seeds
Yeah.
to fire up one of these little $6,000 machines,
You just don't have
it's
it.
not going to happen
Right.
anytime soon.
Gotcha.
Now, the other problem we have is if you go to most food processors, like we were looking to have juice made as opposed to preserved, since the COVID thing shut us down out of Divine Foods. They don't want to fire up their machines here for less than 2 tons. And I got 500 pounds of grapes out of my vineyard last year, maybe 800 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do that.
Unless you
got
brought 2
tons,
tons.
bring me 2 tons. And of course, King Bio, Frank King is right over here in Buncombe County.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got one of the biggest nutraceutical plants in the eastern United States. And I know Frank, he knows me.
Right.
And he said, Chuck, we'd love to process it to use it to make supplements. He said, but, unless you got 4 tons for me to start with, it's not worth my while firing up my machine to do it.
Right.
And I understand that. It's a financial thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes for us as we develop this is, what do we do between the now time when we're just starting and the production capability that we will have that we can sell large quantities like that to King Bio or whoever?
Good question.
So what do? What we've decided to do is we do 2 things. We'll make limited production runs of our Genie's Hardy Muscadine Grape Hall preserves,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll also do a pick your own thing.
Ah.
Okay. Now we have a slightly different way of doing pick your own here.
What do you do?
How pick your own works
I
in
do.
most places.
Mm-hmm.
The way we do it here, it's a 50-50 deal. Okay. So number one is nobody pays out any money,
Okay.
so I don't have to worry about taxes.
Okay.
Okay, and because I'm doing it as a personal thing, it's not like a public open thing. So the government's not on my back about having hand sanitizers and biffies and all that kind of stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the rules and regulations, like you got bird poop on one leaf, you can't harvest anything for 10 feet around it. And if a grape falls on the grass, you can't pick it up. Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of BS in my opinion. But I don't need that kind of aggravation.
Mm.
So I call my buddies, send out an email every year, every season, to my French Bride Vignerons and other winemakers I know in the area. Say, you want some free grapes? Come pick them. The deal is, you pick a pound, you give me a pound. You pick 50 pounds, you give me 50 pounds. So whatever it is you pick, I get half.
You get half.
It's no cost to you, helps me harvest.
Right.
No cost.
Huh.
So that works. So you have to be creative
Mm-hmm.
when you're in this in-between spot of not having enough to make it worthwhile for the big processors, but you got to deal with a small production. And that's the way we're doing it. I mean, we'll find a way. I mean, one way or the other, we'll find a way.
Okay.
But it's always been a challenge. So first it was how do you propagate them? 3
Right.
years. And then once you propagate them, okay, now how do you actually grow them? It's another 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then once you got that done, then we had to figure out how to do the white grape, the scuppernong, and figure that all out. And so now we got the production end of it started, and the grapevine sales part of it started.
Right.
Now we can start to look at the processing end of it, but it's hard.
Is there a difference between the scuppernong and the scuppernong? It's just
There's no such thing as a scuppernong.
there's no such thing as a scuppernong.
It's an old term that
That's what they call
people-
the white scuppernong, like muscadine and scuppernong.
Yeah.
Okay.
You hear the old people up here call them scupperdines, but there's no such thing.
Gotcha.
It's a scuppernong. I mean, Mark Frizzlowski was talking about this. In fact, he used the word scuppernine a couple times, but in a sort of offhanded way. But it's they're all muscadines, and in the industry, we generally classify all of the white ones as scuppernines, and they can be green. They can be sort of whitish color. They can be bronze, sort of orangey tinge. Okay, and all the ones that are, say, dark blue to purples to black are the red grape. So you get the red grape and the white grape. There's no such, well, there is a white muscadine, believe it or not. But that's the way we define it in the industry. So it's a muscadine and scuppernine, two categories, but lots of different varieties in each one.
It's about 200 different varieties.
Well, it's 300 that we know of.
300. Okay.
But there's only about a dozen of them used for commercial purposes. A lot of them aren't very good for anything else.
Really?
Yeah, they're like the wild grapes we have growing here. I think the last time we found, I think it's like 20. It's either 26 or 27 wild grape varieties growing in Madison County.
But not edible.
And fox grape is only one of them that's worth picking and making something out of. Okay. And it's got a really foxy taste to it, and a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people who like muscadines will like the fox grapes because it has a foxiness to it. It's a unique flavor that's in there. And the vinifera and the French American hybrids don't have that.
Right. So. Now, I remember when I was small in Texas, we had the muscadine, but they were edible and everything. And I don't remember them making me sick, but I remember them leaving a itchy feeling where it touched my lips or something like that. Is that something that is just characteristic of a wild grape?
Yeah, you don't have that here. I haven't seen any of the wild grapes here that do that. I've tried tasting all of them when you get enough of one or two of them to taste them. And most of them are so bitter they're just awful, and most of them too small, and most of them don't have a very big yield. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons we can't commercialize them. But the native muscadines and the fox grape, that's the only one that I've seen that's really worth trying to do something with.
Right.
But you got to be a pretty good winemaker to make a decent wine out of fox grape. There's no sensitivity to your lips or tongue or anything with these grapes that we're growing here. I know because I've had them all over me. I've been up to my elbows, literally. But no, it's Texas has a special type of muscadine called a Mustang. And the Mustang grape is a muscadine. It's a unique one for that region down there. They don't grow anyplace else. And they've been able to make some pretty decent wine out of it. Jack Keller is probably this country's, if you look at country wines, which includes muscadine wines and native grapes, cherry wines, apple wines, potato wines, carrot wines, all that kind of stuff. It's all country wines.
Right.
Jack Keller is probably this country's premier country winemaker. He just died 2 years ago. And he's written a book on his recipes and so forth. I have a couple of them in my book that I wrote and published last year, and gave him credit, of course. But he was able to take the Mustang muscadine, and make a really good wine out of it, as well as a couple other things. But
is that a dark purple?
It's not normal for most winemakers to start to make muscadines and turn it into something worthwhile that you can drink. I was one of them, because you don't make wine the same either. There's nothing the same about these muscadines. Nothing. It's so different. And my medals show that I finally made the cut. But geez, it only took 8 years. A visit from Nadia up here to teach a class to get me to figure out how to do it. But it's just, viticulture to me has always been interesting.
Right.
And I may have told you earlier that I stopped counting my miles at 5 million, but I worked around the world in various wineries and vineyards. Can't tell you the number of hours I spent down Hunter Valley, Australia, piggyage on these big concrete open tanks, primary fermenters. But
so you grew muscadine in Arizona?
No.
Oh, what was that in Arizona?
Vinifera.
It was vinifera.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And Tokay is another. It's a nice Hungarian wine. It's really good.
Okay.
Sweet wine. But yeah, it's all vinifera.
All right.
I don't think I even had any French American hybrids in there. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't. It was all vinifera. All vinifera. I didn't get the muscadines until I moved here. I
Gotcha.
never heard of them, never tasted it.
Gotcha.
Until I moved here.
Okay.
Which makes it hard because that means that basically 3/4 of the United States has never tasted, like me, had never tasted or knew about it or tried to grow it or eaten it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the winemakers who start working on it, just the same thing happens to me. You try to make wine the way you make out of vinifera, and it doesn't even come close to something that you can taste, much less drink. I mean, it was so bad I had to put it through my still. No public. So, but that's the way it works with muscadines. It's just different,
Okay.
and I've had to adapt terribly in order to make it work for me.
Oh,
But that's it.
well, thank you, Chuck, for your time.
Well, you're certainly
We
welcome.
appreciate it.
Anytime, you're welcome to come here and check out what we're doing.